Hi, I'm Don Ellis, and welcome to the Indie Filmmaker series, Producing with No Budget. Today we're going to talk about cameras, and I have a few different models here that I'd like to discuss. These are different cameras that have been recommended through different books. One of the first ones that's been recommended is a Super 8. This is a 8mm camera, and if you want a film look, this is a perfect camera to use for that. This is the Kodak Instamatic, and this takes a preloaded cartridge of 8mm film, and this particular model is the M18. And like I say, if you want original film look, this is a good camera to use. The only bad thing about this camera is you have to have extremely good lighting for this camera to pick up a good picture. So, just because of that, and because it's kind of hard to get 8mm film for this camera, especially since Kodak has gone bankrupt. So, the next camera I want to talk about is a little bit on the higher end. This one is a Canon Vixia HF-S20. Now, this camera this shoots in full 1080p high definition, and that's a good thing about this camera because everybody wants high def, but there's a couple of drawbacks to this camera. First of all, this camera was $1,000 last year, and after looking at different websites and different stores and stuff like that, a comparable camera to this is still about $850 to $1,000, depending on which brand you go with and depending on which model you go with. Now, not only is cost an issue with this camera, because a lot of the independent filmmakers just can't afford $1,000 to spend on a camera. So, other than cost, one of the things I don't like about this camera is the manual focus feature on it. Now, if you absolutely have to, or if you're in a situation where you have to hold the camera and you have to focus on different subjects within the frame, this thumb wheel is the focus wheel. And, I mean, you have to go through a whole bunch of different settings in the camera itself just to get to the focus menu. And once you're there, rolling this wheel back and forth it's very slow, and it causes a lot of movement on the screen. So, really, because of those two reasons, I would not recommend a camera like this for shooting indie films. Another option is this. This is the Canon T3 Rebel. I really like this camera. Cost is an issue. Out of the box, this thing was $650. It came with the camera and this 18 to 55 millimeter lens. One of the good things about this camera is the manual focus. The 18 to 55 millimeter lens has a short zoom range on it, and it has an automatic focus and a manual focus. So the manual focus comes in really handy if you're on tight shots and you want to focus between different subjects within the frame. This camera records in 720p high definition. It records great looking footage. This records about 24 frames a second, which is what the professional 35mm film cameras shoot, is 24 frames a second. So there's a lot of other features on this camera other than it being a still camera, of course. This is a great choice. One thing that I absolutely love about this camera shooting film is the interchangeable lenses. Now, of course, since it is a mid-range camera, you can get different lenses for it. I've got this 55 to 250 millimeter lens, and I also have a 50 millimeter lens, and between the camera and the 2 additional lenses, I spent about $1,000. So I spent the same amount for this camera, but this, I have 2 extra lenses with it, and this has so much more range than a Handycam or a camcorder or anything like that. So this is one of my top choices. My other choice of cameras is the one that I'm actually filming on. And you might not believe this, but I'll show you a clip of it in just a few minutes. This is my cell phone. It is the Samsung Galaxy S2 Skyrocket. And when it was time for me to pick a new phone, I chose this one specifically for the camera in it and because of the drivers in it. It's a great camera. It's an 8 megapixel camera, so it's a little on the lower end as far as the megapixels go, but for the money, for the cost, it's a camera that I have with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and if there's something that I absolutely want to get on film, this is the camera I go to. So, after showing you a few different options as far as cameras go, I hope that helps you make your choice a little bit easier in finding a new camera. Now, any of these cameras can be used for independent films. I have all of the different types of cameras just because I've used all of them. Of course, I do have my preferences, but that's not to say that somebody else wouldn't prefer a different camera over any of these. But again, I hope that helps narrow down your choices, and I look forward to seeing you next time when we talk about lighting and sound.